Okay, so with this video, what I want to cover is having a function that has a random value. I then want to keep on calling that function to keep on getting a random value, and then I want to store that in a list, and then I want to work out the total using a for loop. Okay, so to start off with, what I want to do is start working on my function that creates a random number every time. So I'm going to declare it, so when I refer to it, it's something that exists. And then I'm going to create a random list. In fact, I'll leave that for now. What we'll focus on is our random value. So I'm going to define our function, and I'm going to call it random number generator. And then inside the function, I'm going to declare my global value or variable that I'm going to use. Okay. So this variable that we used here is going to have a random number every time, and it's going to be stored in there. And then we're going to have random number, and then this is what I'm going to use on this line. And what's happening there is every time I call it, it's going to produce a random number between 0 and 10. And then I'm just going to print it out. And then I'm going to call my function random number generator. I'm just going to call it once, and then once it's called, it's going to come back here and move on to the next step. And then we're going to have a user input. And I'm going to say input. I'm going to say stop or start. I'm going to say while my user input does not equal stop, I need to keep on going. And I'm going to say random number generator, I'm going to call it. And then I'm going to save this value, so when it calls this function, it's going to create that random number, and then I want it to be saved. Every time that runs, I want it to save that random value. So this is where the list comes into play. So I'm going to say list of numbers, and when we declare our list, we know it's a list because it has our square brackets. And then back to this function, what we're going to do, we're going to do list of numbers, and we're going to put dot append. And then what happens when we do dot append, when we call that inbuilt function that's used by Python, it's going to add the last value to the back of the line, or to the back of the list in this case. And we want it to store our random number. Okay. The reason that we can get a new copy of a number every time is because we use that variable global. And then from there, what we could do is we can use our user input at the very bottom, because it went through, we know it doesn't equal stop, it's going to call it, we're going to get a random number, we're going to save it into our list, and then we want to check once all that's been done with our sequential programming, we want to check whether they're finished. Okay, give them another chance, otherwise we'll be trapped in this while loop, and it's just going to constantly print out a number, okay, the same number, which we don't want. So instead of it keep on printing a random number, what we're going to do is we're going to say user input equals input start or stop, and it gives it another chance to escape that while loop. Then I want to print out the list of numbers, so this is going to print out the array. This is how you do it, just to show what it looks like, and then we'll give it a space just to make it clearer for us. And then underneath there, I'm going to use a for loop. Okay, so for I in range from 0 to len, so that's the length of our list of numbers. I'm going to say print I, so our value for I is going to keep on going up from 0 to whatever the length of our value would be. So say if we have a list with 10 values, it's going to print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 10. And we're going to make sure it's nice and clear that this is our value for I. The next part, I want to print number in this list. And if you remember how we refer to a value in our index, is through the numbered index, or how we refer to that data value, I should say, is through that index. Okay, so if we have a list of, let's say, 10 things, so let me just do a separate list, and we'll do list of pets, and say cat, dog, fish. Okay, if I wanted to refer to a value here, say if I wanted to get cat, I'd refer to it by saying list of pets, and then in these brackets I'd put 0 and I'd get cat. That's because we just start referring to values in a list from 0. Even though there's still three values there, we start at 0. If I wanted to get dog, I'd put a 1, and if I want to get fish, I'd get a 2. There's still 3 values there, but we'll just refer to it a bit differently. We start counting from 0. And from here, if we come back to this point, so numbering this list, and then we're going to get the value from our list, so we're going to say list of numbers, and then in our brackets, because we don't know how long our list is, or what value it will be, we're using that value I, and the reason this is going to work no matter how many values we have is because the length of our list is always going to vary, and it's going to check it on this line. The next part, I want to keep the total. So I'm going to say total plus total. Okay, because what's happening is when you assign a variable, if you look at our first video, it's going to replace it with a new number. So we want to remember our old number, and we want to add to that old number our new random number. So we're going to say list of numbers, and then I'm going to put I. And then we've covered that, and now I'm going to print out the total of our random numbers is, and then I'm going to print out the total using a comma. Now hopefully if I give this a run, it's going to work. So if I say, yep, start, 1, if you notice, I could even put gibberish in it. As long as it does not equal to stop, it's going to keep on looping through. So this line here, start or stop, it's asking me. I'm going to put gibberish in. It does not equal, our user input does not equal stop. So it's going to call our function again. It's going to get a random number. It's going to print that number. And then in this part on our next line, it's going to append that random value to our list, and then it's going to ask us again. So keep on going gibberish, and now I'm a bit bored. I'm going to say stop. What's happened from here is it's going through, it's printed out our list, all on one line, all together, and then after that we're starting to go through our for loop. And if you've noticed, there's a bit of an error. I want you to pause it for a moment and try and figure it out for yourself. But it's saying that our value total is not defined. So what we'll do at the very top is we'll define it. If we give it a close, we give it another run. And then if I say stop, there we go. So we get to this point again. We've printed out our list, we've gone to our for loop, and each of our value for I is going through our loop each time. So first time we start at 0, we'll loop through. Second time we go through to 1, we'll loop through, then 3, then 4, and that's what this line's doing here. So we know what our variable I is doing. The next part, because it's incrementing, that value we're then using to refer to an item in our list, like we did with our cat, dog and fish 0, 1 and 2. It's doing the same thing using a for loop. The next part, we declared our variable, and then we're saying it equals to itself and our new item that's from our list. And there we have it. If you have any questions, just make sure you give a comment or just chuck your hand up in class, and that's about it.